Everyone in this town says I look like a dead girl. I moved to Millbrook to start over. It was one of those tiny towns with 2 stoplights. The landlord stared at me when I picked up my keys. You look really familiar. Have we met before? I told him I'd never been to Millbrook in my life, and he nodded slowly, but kept glancing at me sideways while I signed the lease. At the grocery store, the cashier did a double take and said, "Oh, you're back." And when I said this was my first time there, she got confused and mumbled that I looked like someone but couldn't quite place it. By the end of my first week, I'd had the same interaction with at least 15 people, but what bothered me wasn't the recognition, it was the fear. The coffee shop owner's hand shook when she gave me change. A group of teenagers crossed the street to avoid me. I finally cornered the hardware store owner, an old man named Carl, who seemed more curious than afraid. "Everyone in this town thinks they know me," I said. "Who do I look like?" He studied my face for a long time, then said, "You really don't know?" When I said no, he shook his head and said, "If you don't know, it's not my place to tell you," and disappeared into the back room. That night, I couldn't sleep thinking about those words. I started going through old photo albums looking for any evidence I'd been here as a kid, but there was nothing. I called my mom asking if we'd ever visited Millbrook, and she'd never heard of it. But when I mentioned the town to my aunt, she got quiet and said, "Why are you asking about Millbrook?" When I told her I'd moved there, she hung up on me. I tried calling back, but she wouldn't answer. Finally, she texted, "Get out of that town." The next day at the bank, the teller went white when she saw me and brought back the manager, who looked between me and something behind the counter before asking for 2 forms of ID. While I was pulling out my license, I saw what she was looking at, a photograph taped to the wall. It was grainy and distant, but it looked like me. "What is that?" I asked. She quickly covered it with a paper. "Security protocol," she said, but her hands were trembling. I went to the library to look through old newspapers, but the librarian said their archives were unavailable. When I pressed her, she leaned in and whispered, "February 2019, then walked away. I searched online for Millbrook February 2019, but found nothing. Every link was dead, every news article removed. Something had been scrubbed from the internet. A week later, I was walking home when I noticed my apartment door was slightly open. Nothing was missing, but things had been moved. My photo albums were on different shelves. My laptop had been opened. Someone was trying to figure out who I really was, just like I was. That night, I heard voices outside my window. When I looked through the blinds, I saw 5 people standing across the street in the dark, just staring up at my window. I recognized the bank manager and the librarian among them. When I opened my door to confront them, they were gone. The next morning, there was a note under my door. "Stop pretending you don't remember." I called my aunt again, and this time she answered. "You need to leave," she said. "Today." "What happened in February 2019? I asked. "How do you know about that?" "Someone told me to look it up, but I can't find anything." She was quiet for a long time. "There was an incident. A woman. She looked exactly like you." "What kind of incident?" "I can't tell you that," she said, "but she's gone now, and you need to leave before..." The line went dead. When I tried calling back, the number was disconnected. I packed my things, but when I went to my car, all 4 tires had been slashed. The bus station was closed for maintenance. The taxi company said they didn't service Millbrook anymore. I was trapped. I was walking past the cemetery when I saw fresh flowers on a grave. The headstone had been recently cleaned, but the name had been scratched off, deliberately destroyed. Only the death date was visible, February 15th, 2019. Behind the stone was a small memorial photo in a weatherproof frame. I picked it up and my blood went cold. It was me, exactly me. Same face, same eyes, even the same small scar above my left eyebrow from when I fell as a kid. But I'd never taken this photo. I was wearing clothes I didn't own, standing in front of a house I'd never seen. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see half the town standing at the cemetery entrance, just watching me. Carl stepped forward. "We always knew you'd come back," he said. "That's not me," I insisted, holding up the photo. But I wasn't sure anymore. I wasn't sure of anything. Carl smiled, but his eyes were cold. "It's time for you to admit what you did to this town. It's time for you to pay." Full story on the channel below.